the death of the battleship Tirpitz. RAF Lancasters roar to the attack. And here is the 45,000-ton pride of the German Navy firing desperately at the air raiders. A 6-ton armor-piercing blockbuster is on its way. The Tirpitz is mortally hit, but replies with everything, including 15-inch guns, in this climactic battle of Tromsø Fjord in Norway. Another near hit. The RAF is scoring after 2 previous unsuccessful attempts from Scottish bases 1,200 miles away. Another blockbuster heads for the target. Perfect weather sweeps away the defensive smokescreen, and another hit is registered. These RAF pictures show the death agonies of the crippled monster. Months of preparation went into the assault. The RAF, in sinking the Tirpitz, turned in one of its greatest jobs. Old Man Winter has joined the Germans to slow our advance in Northern Europe. The first snow combined with mud are 2 enemies that can slow down the best mechanized divisions. Farther to the south, at Konzen, Germans are blasted by our fire. A German gun position in a farmhouse is discovered by observers, and they don't live there anymore. A withering barrage drives out those still living. These are Signal Corps pictures. A church steeple is being used by the Germans as a spotting post for their guns, and our troops have no alternative but to shell it. Shot after shot finds its mark. With the Luftwaffe driven from the skies, anti-aircraft units have turned to field artillery fighting. Using their same guns, they help to rout the enemy from the Hürtgen forest. A barrage covers our advance. With no planes to shoot at, these men craved action, and they're getting here aplenty as they aid the infantry in pushing the Germans back. California's usual pageantry opens the 6th War Loan Drive in Los Angeles as motion picture players and Californians join to depict embattled America in her pioneer days. The spirit that made our country great is recalled during this, the greatest of all her struggles. The youth of Los Angeles does its part, and there is only one slogan in this city today: buy bonds until victory is won. Why our men need your money is explained by Secretary Morgenthau.
One indispensable source of encouragement to those men is the knowledge that we at home are backing them up with all we have. This is our endurance test as well as theirs. Our response to the 6th War Loan Drive will be the vindication to these men of their faith in us.
Nazi tanks and troops patrol Copenhagen, capital of Denmark, occupied since 1940 when Germany attacked without a declaration of war. The peaceful Danes burned with resentment and sabotaged enemy headquarters and quisling establishments at every opportunity. When the Nazis proclaimed a state of siege, the Danish Navy rebelled. Part of the fleet fled to Sweden, and the rest was scuttled. As Danish defiance grew, the Nazis applied their usual brutal methods in an effort to enforce obedience. Beatings, killings, and imprisonment in concentration camps were the punishments inflicted on a brave people defending their rights. Murdered in the dark by the Gestapo, Kai Munk, a celebrated Danish priest, poet, and dramatist, is buried along with other martyrs to the Danish cause. The graves are heaped with tributes from King Christian and his people. The King is a prisoner of the Nazis in his castle, but his loyal subjects display the flag from every house in honor of his 73rd birthday. One of the stern measures effected by the Nazis was to smash the plate glass windows in Copenhagen stores, glass almost impossible to replace. The Stars and Stripes, symbol of the Allied promise of liberation, flies above scenes of the Danish program of sabotage. The Danes stage a general strike, tying up transportation and shutting down German war factories. But in spite of beatings, killings, curfews, and starvation tactics, the Danes would not give in. It was the Nazis, finally, who had to bow to Danish courage. Still occupied by the enemy, Denmark bravely awaits the day of complete freedom.
$56,000 fans have wedged themselves into the Polo Grounds to watch the professional Giants tangle with the Green Bay Packers. Comp of the Packers heaves a bullseye to Hudson for a first down. Green Bay's ball. Comp takes it again and heaves it, watch it now, to Livingston, who intercepts it from the Giants and makes it count. Giants in possession. Ball goes toward Cup, and he goes for the long yardage, about 25 yards of it in one trip. This time the ball goes to Pascal. He knifes through the same hole and picks up 15 more yards. These pros tackle for keeps. Petrillis dives through left tackle. Good thing his head is glued on. The Giants need this game to improve their standing. Ball goes down to first-year player Herber, who sends it along to Liebel, and the Giants win 24-0.
All along the heavily fortified borders of the Reich, Canadians, British, Americans, and French seek to widen the cracks in the Nazi defense system. The dogged foot-by-foot advance of the Allies depends heavily on the infantry, mainstay of the attack when the weather closes in on the battlefront and the going gets tough. In German border towns such as Bischweiler, Yank troops fight through backyards and from house to house, while mortar crews cover their attack, raining shells into enemy positions. The desperately fighting infantry suffers many casualties as the Nazis retreat toward the shelter of the West Wall. Fighting toward the rich industrial regions of the Ruhr and the Saar, the Allies seek to wrest from the Germans their richest sources of fuel and steel. Strasbourg, capital of Alsace-Lorraine, and one of the important gateways to the Rhineland, is occupied by Yanks and French. The flooded Rhine Canal is evidence of the torrential rains that have hampered the Allied drive. Signs direct the victors to the center of the city. A direct hit by a German artillery shell sets fire to American jeeps and trucks used by the French Army. These are Newsreel and Signal Corps pictures. Liberated townsfolk lose no time in cleaning out Nazi headquarters. Heavy guns abandoned by the retreating enemy are captured intact. Beyond Mulhouse, southern end of the Allied attack, the fleeing Germans set fire to villagers before leaving. The French clean up enemy resistance, seizing many prisoners at Gestapo headquarters. Along along the roads, long lines of prisoners and civilians stream to the rear. Civilians forced to work for the Germans are free to return to their homes. The Allied drive moves on toward freedom for all of Europe.
Strong carrier units of our great Pacific Fleet steam towards the island of Luzon in the Philippines for a blow at Manila. This maneuver is designed to help our men fighting on Leyte. Admiral Radford commands this carrier division, and the men under him receive last instructions before they take off to smash at this more Jap planes to his credit and out for more. Newsreel and Navy photographers record the thrilling action. Planes come out to sea to attack. Bombs fall close. Some bombs hit. Here, a Hellcat absorbed the bomb's force. The terrific screen of anti-aircraft fire thrown up by our force accounts for 28 nipped planes. As crews fight fires aboard some of the carriers, our own planes bombed shipping and airfields at Manila. They run up an impressive score. 14 ships were sunk or damaged, and 140 planes shot up on the ground. Round one for Uncle Sam.
The National Association of Manufacturers, meeting in a War and Reconversion Congress, hear General Somerville, in charge of supplying our armies, call on industry for more production.
American industry and American workers must rededicate themselves here and now to an upsurge of production on the home front so that our forces on all fronts shall be limited in their use of materiel only by our ability to get it to them and by elbow room on the fighting fronts in which to use it. The kind of war we shall fight is in the balance. The decision as to the weight we shall show, and this is the time for a decision. And I know what it will be. Thank you.
With the war increasing in fury, more and more doctors and nurses have been called to help our men at the front. A hard job, they are doing it well. But they've left a gap on the home front that can only be filled by nurses' aides, those heroines who are facing a gigantic task without flinching. Many more nurses' aides are needed to receive this same careful instruction in hospital care and to step in and help both wounded servicemen and civilians. The hospital in your hometown needs help to care for the wives of soldiers, for example, and the Army and Navy need the services of any girl over 18 to aid in nursing convalescent veterans back to health. Help your neighbors and your community. Apply at your local Red Cross chapter.
The curtain goes up on big-time collegiate basketball as New York University scores its first goal against the University of Rochester in Madison Square Garden. Rochester moves down the floor and in a matter of seconds ties it up. New York U, supposed to be one of the strongest teams in the East this season, rings up another 2 points. Now it's Rochester's turn to put on an exciting show for the customers. And they do it. New York U's ball. Although the score was 20-all at halftime, the flash of this speedy violet outfit warns the entire basketball world that NYU is out for blood as they hang up a 53-39 win over Rochester. Cleared by Army censors, this address by Frederick C. Crawford, just returned from the war fronts, outlines the way we can speed final victory. He tells the National Association of Manufacturers in New York.
We face a powerful enemy. Many lives will be lost before there is victory in Europe. General Somerville, in his speech Wednesday, stated that we are committed to fight with the overwhelming superiority of material rather than lives. Now, without seeing the fighting and the mud and the destruction, one can have no conception of the terrific rate of consumption of raw material. I repeat, we return deeply stirred, deadly serious in our determination to make Americans understand this. You asked me how long will this war last, and I'll give you the impression that came to me as I sat there in that 12th Army headquarters. Our armies can sit there in front of that line 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, unless we expend vast quantities of materials or lives. Yes, General Somerville summarized it. Lives or material. And the materials must be those determined by the conditions of the war as it develops. Let us be thankful that our war material needs are in the hands of this great supply officer. The GI is hungry for the assurance that we will not let him down, said General Eisenhower. Don't worry about him. Don't worry about the morale of our boys. Just back him up. And we solemnly pledged ourselves to return, to bring you this message, to travel this land over and tell all men who love their country that it's time to re-enlist in the battle for freedom.
Remember, we at home have to help win this war. The heartbreaking march up the Italian boot continues in a sea of mud, where a pair of dry shoes is an oddity, and the GI wonders whether there ever was such a thing as dry land. Pinning down an estimated 20 Nazi divisions in northern Italy demands superhuman feats of transport. And a foot slugger really knows what a muddy track is. At Borgo San Lorenzo, Signal Corps cameras record a miniature flood, which all but stalls traffic. For the second year, winter is descending on this front, with rains that make the second story about the only dry spot in town. He'll swap this for a pair of boots, but the Signora really needs a boat. War in Italy has become amphibious.
When the Nazis see a newsreel, these scenes of wrecked American equipment along the Western Front greet them. This official War Department release of captured enemy films shows part of the staggering cost we pay in tanks and planes to bring the Nazi to his knees. Another price is paid by valiant Allied soldiers who, having lost the war's gamble, languish in prison stockades. These are the men who must wait in monotony and boredom for war's end, an end that can only be speeded by our crushing and overwhelming superiority in equipment and supply.
Prime Minister Churchill confers with Premier Stalin in Moscow. The British chief has Anthony Eden as advisor, and of course Molotov is on hand for the Russians. These talks on war progress led to the statement by Mr. Churchill that the Allies must call on our enemies for unconditional surrender. Following the conferences, the Prime Minister prepares to leave Moscow by air. On his return to London, Mr. Churchill told the House of Commons that Anglo-Russian relations have never been closer. He paved the way for General de Gaulle's visit to Moscow and the signing of the pact between France and Russia for mutual assistance. A season of spectacular professional football nears its climax as a Redskin fumble is recovered by the New York Giants, who are off to an early score in Washington, D.C. On the very next play, a successful pass to Cuff nails it down. Washington's Sammy Baugh tries a short pass, which is again picked up by the Giants, who drive back down the field for 11 yards. The Giants are playing desperately for the Eastern Championship and a chance to meet the Green Bay Packers in the title playoff. And here they go again as Herbert passes, and it is good for another Giant score. The Skins get another chance, but Baugh's throw is intercepted, this time by Ebedesian, who razzle-dazzles the Giants into their 7th Eastern title by the decisive score of 31-0. Cleared by British minesweepers, the great port of Antwerp is now open, freeing the Allied bottleneck to the Western Front. The Nazis, surprised by the furious British assault in September, fled from Antwerp before they had time to plan its destruction. 26 miles of harbor installations provide a greatly shortened supply line. General Eisenhower pays his first visit to the British sector since D-Day. Conferences with General Montgomery and members of his staff give the Supreme Commander a comprehensive picture of progress in the Netherlands. On a tour of Second Army positions wearing British battle dress and sloshing through the flooded battlefields, General Ike is well protected. The head man of the Allied drive has plenty to worry about. The flooded Maas River, ordinarily 200 yards wide, has widened to 1,500. Royal Engineers keep supply trucks rolling. And when it isn't raining on the Western Front, wet, sticky snow and mud combine to stall the Allied advance. A cold, miserable job for the infantry, and an even tougher one trying to give the wounded proper care. War bonds and ammunition will shorten the job. In sufficient amounts, for example, they will shorten the drive on Cologne. These are Signal Corps and Newsreel pictures of the slow but steady advance on the Rhineland. All along the 450-mile front, the Allies are meeting stubborn resistance as the Nazis retire into the heavily fortified zones. The going is tough for both sides. The Allies are not penetrating the Saar and the Ruhr without cost, but the Germans are suffering heavily. Supreme Headquarters reported that German casualties in November reached the staggering total of 150,000 for a 3 weeks period. Here's that forgotten man again, or is he? Well, if the Fuhrer is still worrying, here's something for him to worry about. General Warsaw, German defender of Strasbourg, surrendered these 5,000 Nazis when he bowed before the Allied assault. The West Wall is tough, but war bonds and stockpiles will soften it up. As the eyes of the world focus on Greece's struggle to form a government, food, the greatest pacifier of all, arrives to feed a people which has starved for almost 4 years. This is the first food, other than that distributed by the Red Cross, to arrive since the war began. General Scobie and Premier Papandreou, whose government the British are supporting, are in charge of food distribution to Greeks who have almost forgotten what a square meal is like. Food, the great antidote for bullets. Food for one of the world's bravest peoples. Striking back at the weapon they fear most, the Japs send fighter planes to strafe B-29s dispersed on the airfield at Saipan in the Marianas. The devastating power of the mighty superforts has been felt time and again by Tokyo and other important industrial centers in the Japanese homeland. The enemy goes all out in an endeavor to keep the B-29s grounded. Several superforts are set afire or damaged, but 14 out of 15 Jap raiders, including this one, were shot down. Such raids are to be expected, and the still formidable power of our Saipan-based air forces prepares to retaliate with a vengeance. General Emmett O'Donnell, task force leader, and General Haywood Hansel, commanding the 21st Bomber Command, confer on the raid. Major Morgan of Memphis Belle fame piloted O'Donnell's plane. Following the dauntless Dottie are plenty more of the same stripe, off to show Tokyo that the Jap strafing mission to Saipan was all in vain. Newsreel cameramen and official Air Force photographers caught the takeoff. In tight formation, the great fleet of giant bombers roars toward the Jap capital. Alternating with the 20th Bomber Command in Asia, the 21st strikes from Saipan, delivering the old 1-2 punch at the vital industrial centers of Nippon. Rosie O'Donnell's task force roars over Tokyo itself, vulnerable to the long-range striking power of the super forts. On the target, and a load of bombs to batter Jap plane factories, steel mills, docks, and other installations, blasting key objectives that will otherwise prolong the war and cost many American lives. With Tokyo aflame, the super forts head for home, wheeling into a sky that pictures the setting sun of Jap nation.
The softening up of the Japs in the Philippines means attacks by carrier-based planes on Manila as our troops land less than 150 miles to the south. Hellcats, Helldivers, and Avengers swoop down on shipping in Manila Harbor and run up a swell score. 1 light cruiser sunk, 4 destroyers sunk, and 11 cargo vessels sent to the bottom. Just to top it off, 28 enemy planes were shot down and another 130 strafed on the ground. A giant step on our way back. Limping back to the mothership, a Hellcat comes in with 1 wheel gone. Watch this amazing landing. Always on the alert, the deck crew goes on the double to his rescue. But this is one safe and happy landing. As we move north on our drive in Japan, the airmen of the fleet spearhead our attack.
Incredible a year ago, men can now be picked up by a speeding plane. The dummy is, or was, there. Next, a sheep, selected because of its delicate physique, is placed between the special uprights. The pickup system was evolved for rescues in remote spots. A volunteer paratrooper in special harness makes the trip with no more wrench than a jump from a kitchen stool. The shock is taken up by the nylon rope and special compensating winch in the plane. Gently, the winch hauls him toward the plane. These are Air Force pictures. None the worse, he's ready for another takeoff. There have been 4 men picked up in this fashion during experiments by the Air Technical Command. The goal is designed to steady the climber against the plane's slipstream. Intensive training of pilots is necessary for the operation. Fantastic as Buck Rogers, here's another aviation miracle come true.
Blanketing the continent as far south as Tennessee, snow hits a near record in Canada, almost paralyzing many big cities, including Montreal. Whipped by heavy winds, the snow fell for hour upon hour in this Quebec metropolis. Throughout the Dominion, the blizzard took its toll. 50 lives were lost, and hardest hit was the area around Toronto, where 18 died from the storm. The city was virtually isolated, but he still kept up his rounds. With 22 inches on the ground, stores were closed and pedestrians set out at their own risk. Most offices were closed, and shovelers had no need for the reminder as they fought to keep a few main streets open to traffic. Frozen switches had to be thawed to keep them rolling. The worst snowstorm of this century took a heavy toll.
A hard-fought title game is in the making at the Polo Grounds as Laws of the Green Bay Packers tears through the New York Giants line for a 17-yard gain. Frisch, the Packers' brilliant ground gainer, slashes through right tackle for 23 yards more, putting the ball on the Giants' 1-yard stripe. Again, it's Frisch over for the Packers' first tally. Piling it on during the first period, the Packers' comp slings a fast one to Hudson, who is downed after a 23-yard gain. Packers set up their second scoring play, beating the Giants for the title by a score of 14-7. Scenes from a captured German newsreel received through official War Department sources show how the German nation prepared for their present powerful counteroffensive on the Western Front. All places of amusement were closed. Everything was subordinated to the grim bid for a negotiated peace. Nazi women were drafted for war jobs as the German General Staff took over from Hitler the direction of the counterthrust against the Allied threat to the Rhineland. With the steady pounding of the German oil reserves and synthetic oil plants by the Allied air forces and the loss of Romanian oil fields, gas is scarce. In munition centers, streetcars and trucks are loaded with supplies for the Nazi war machine. And heading toward the threatened West Wall, the trolleys drag the powerless trucks. Up at the front, the well-husbanded gasoline sets Nazi tanks rolling toward France. Again, the Wehrmacht is on the prowl. V weapons, like the famous robot bomb, blast Allied positions. Nazi columns, like probing fingers, thrust at the Allied lines, feeling for a break in our defense. 15 German divisions, upward of 200,000 men, and 600 tanks were thrown into the desperate gamble to delay the Allied advance. Nazi spearheads rolling into Belgium were strafed by Yank planes. Remember, these are still German pictures. Nazi equipment takes a pounding from American bombardiers. And shifting over to the American lines, Yank artillery opens up on the advancing Germans. Signal Corps pictures show one of our wounded tank commanders being attended by medics during the bitter struggle. And make no mistake, the German breakthrough marked one of the bitterest battles the world has ever seen. Many prisoners were taken by both sides. From the American lines, a group of captured Nazis marched toward an agreed-upon meeting place. Arrangements have been made with the German commander for an exchange of prisoners. And from behind the enemy lines, a similar group of captured Allied troops converges on the rendezvous. Formal negotiations for the exchange are held as the two columns wait impatiently for release to their own forces. The Nazi officers reach an agreement with the Red Cross representative, Andrew Hodges, and other Allied officials. At the conclusion, what looks like a small riot turns out to be a joyful celebration. Smiling and confident, they are ready to witness the serious business of stemming the Nazi tide.
America's new and deadly versions of the rocket-firing plane are about to give a Sherman tank the works at the Dover, Delaware Army Airfield. A P-38, armed with the 5-inch projectiles, dives for the target. A P-47 makes the run, armed with the same 130-pound missiles aimed by the plane's glide. These attacks are made at 300 miles per hour, the rockets hitting with terrific force. The plane swerves sharply to avoid flying fragments. The tank has really met its match from the air. Captain Harry Dreney, Assistant Commandant of the Maritime Service, has voiced an urgent appeal for thousands of Americans to man our ever-growing merchant convoys to far-flung battlefronts, men from 17 to 50. Training is thorough in the best American seafaring tradition. Sinews of war must flow in an unceasing stream where and when they are needed. Fuel flies planes, drives tanks, puts war in motion. But it takes men, thousands of them, to keep America on the high seas. Apply at any Maritime Service office or United States Employment Service. Keep them sailing to victory.
Children of diplomats assigned to Washington bring an international greeting to America on this holiday season. These children of the United Nations are what we are fighting for, as we all know. Miss America, for example. Charles Besteman of Poland. Ada Carrera from our good neighbor Mexico. The representative of the Greeks is on hand, along with this lad from New Zealand. Spain is also here in this pert miss. But our first greeting is from Cuba.
Mucho gusto en desearle unas buenas Navidades y que el año 1945 le traiga al mundo la paz y la felicidad para todos. It gives me a great pleasure to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and that the new year 1945 may bring the world the peace and the happiness to all.
And here is a holiday card from Belgium through Lillian and Guy Loriden.
Dear American friends, if the little children of Belgium can celebrate this year for the first time in 5 years a free and happy Christmas, it is because many of your fathers have gone over there to chase the Germans out of their country. In the name of the Belgian children, we thank you all for your sacrifice and we wish you a very happy Christmas and joyeux Noël.
Scenes from a captured German newsreel received through official War Department sources show how the German nation prepared for their present powerful counteroffensive on the Western Front. All places of amusement were closed. Everything was subordinated to the grim bid for a negotiated peace. Nazi women were drafted for war jobs as the German General Staff took over from Hitler the direction of the counter-thrust against the Allied threat to the Rhineland. With the steady pounding of the German oil reserves and synthetic oil plants by the Allied air forces and the loss of Romanian oil fields, gas is scarce. In munition centers, streetcars and trucks are loaded with supplies for the Nazi war machine. And heading toward the threatened West Wall, the trolleys drag the powerless trucks. Up at the front, the well-husbanded gasoline sets Nazi tanks rolling toward France. Again, the Wehrmacht is on the prowl. V weapons, like the famous robot bomb, blast Allied positions. Nazi columns, like probing fingers, thrust at the Allied lines, feeling for a break in our defense. 15 German divisions, upward of 200,000 men, and 600 tanks were thrown into the desperate gamble to delay the Allied advance. Nazi spearheads rolling into Belgium were strafed by Yank planes. Remember, these are still German pictures. Nazi equipment takes a pounding from American bombardiers. And shifting over to the American lines, Yank artillery opens up on the advancing Germans. Signal Corps pictures show one of our wounded tank commanders being attended by medics during the bitter struggle. And make no mistake, the German breakthrough marked one of the bitterest battles the world has ever seen. Many prisoners were taken by both sides. From the American lines, a group of captured Nazis marched toward an agreed-upon meeting place. Arrangements have been made with the German commander for an exchange of prisoners. And from behind the enemy lines, a similar group of captured Allied troops converges on the rendezvous. Formal negotiations for the exchange are held as the two columns wait impatiently for release to their own forces. The Nazi officers reach an agreement with the Red Cross representative, Andrew Hodges, and other Allied officials. At the conclusion, what looks like a small riot turns out to be a joyful celebration. Smiling and confident, they are ready to witness the serious business of stemming the Nazi tide.
America's new and deadly versions of the rocket-firing plane are about to give a Sherman tank the works at the Dover, Delaware Army Airfield. A P-38, armed with the 5-inch projectiles, dives for the target. A P-47 makes the run, armed with the same 130-pound missiles aimed by the plane's glide. These attacks are made at 300 miles per hour, the rockets hitting with terrific force. The plane swerves sharply to avoid flying fragments. The tank has really met its match from the air. Captain Harry Dreney, Assistant Commandant of the Maritime Service, has voiced an urgent appeal for thousands of Americans to man our ever-growing merchant convoys to far-flung battlefronts, men from 17 to 50. Training is thorough in the best American seafaring tradition. Sinews of war must flow in an unceasing stream where and when they are needed. Fuel flies planes, drives tanks, puts war in motion. But it takes men, thousands of them, to keep America on the high seas. Apply at any Maritime Service Office or United States Employment Service. Keep them sailing to victory.
Children of diplomats assigned to Washington bring an international greeting to America on this holiday season. These children of the United Nations are what we are fighting for, as we all know. Miss America, for example. Charles Besterman of Poland. Ada Carrera from our good neighbor Mexico. The representative of the Greeks is on hand, along with this lad from New Zealand. Spain is also here in this pert miss, but our first greeting is from Cuba.
Mucho gusto en desearle unas buenas Navidades y que el año 1945 le traiga al mundo la paz y la felicidad para todos. It gives me a great pleasure to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and that the new year 1945 may bring the world the peace and the happiness to all.
And here is a holiday card from Belgium through Lillian and Guy Loridan.
Dear American friends, if the little children of Belgium can celebrate this year for the first time in 5 years a free and happy Christmas, it is because many of your fathers have gone over there to chase the Germans out of their country. In the name of the Belgian children, we thank you all for your sacrifice and we wish you a very happy Christmas and joyeux Noël.
Russian tanks push around Vilna to completely circle the city and spearhead their drive into East Prussia. The siege is a bitter battle. It was 5 days before the Russians were able to clear the last Germans from the town. The toll was heavy on both sides. Advance patrols met stiff resistance from snipers. Some buildings were bricked up with only slots left in the windows for last stand Germans. With the capture of the city completed, prisoners were taken by the thousands, many of them badly wounded. In this trap, the Germans lost uncounted equipment and troops and sealed their fate on the Eastern Front. With 35,000 Germans killed and more than 25,000 captured in this area, it was one of the decisive battles of the war. Mosquito and Bullfighter bombers of the RAF are off for a stab at enemy shipping in Norwegian waters. These remarkable scenes were made by the Air Force cameramen as they came over the target. The ships throw back heavy flak as the planes dive down from 5,000 feet for the attack. The rocket-firing bullfighters give the ships a thorough plastering. On this mission, the RAF accounted for 6 ships loaded with vital war supplies for the Nazis. They had to run a gauntlet of heavy anti-aircraft fire from the snow-capped mountains surrounding the fjords, as well as from the ships themselves. But they have the pride of accomplishment in a job well done.
Arrival of the Jap in the Philippines spelled the end of liberal education. English and all things Occidental were barred. But now Leyte school children are re-entering the portals of free institutions of learning. Once again, uncensored information finds its way into their hands. The knowledge of the world, not the propaganda of Nippon. And here's a new wrinkle in school buses, the Jeep of all trades. The faith of their fathers has returned to supplant the teachings of brute force with those of a friendly land.
Members of the motion picture industry mobilized for the war on infantile paralysis. President Roosevelt told them that this year the need was greater than ever. Basil O'Connor, president of the Polio Foundation, pledges leaders of the movie industry, including Spyro Skouras and Nicholas Skink, to work for the March of Dimes. Shower down, folks, and aid a worthy cause.
Mrs. Carlotta Oppenheimer typifies the war spirit of Britain's womanhood. Hands across the sea is her theme as she bakes cakes and dedicates the finest fruits of her garden to American troops stationed in England. In a spirit of appreciation, G.I. Joe helps feed the chickens, whose eggs are also pledged to the war effort. In the snug comfort of the Oppenheimer kitchen, a toast to their hostess. Fresh vegetables to warm a mess sergeant's heart. A load of good cheer for the Yanks from an English Lady Bountiful.
Southern beaches beckon and spring is just around the corner, according to these Halpert creations shown at New York's Hotel Pierre. A ballerina print is featured with a tricky mandarin bag. And if safety is your motto, here's a good little pin-up. Are you seeing your best beau? Maybe you're one of the studious type. Speaking of the South, which includes this Texas Miss and her circular rotating bag, wouldn't you love to be in Florida? The Greeks had a word for it. Our word for it is simply darling.
Over the roof of the world, a new air route from the Western Hemisphere to Russia and the Far East is taking shape in Canada. Airports and installations are springing up like magic along the Northwest staging route. Over some of the world's most forbidding terrain, this shortcut to the Orient is dotted with U.S.-built oil refineries to supply fuel for the route. More than 5,000 American-made Russian planes and others have been ferried over the airline. Russian flyers have become as familiar as Americans and Canadians with the airway. The dawning of a new world crossroad. The air lane was pioneered by Americans and Canadians, and $39 million of the cost will be repaid by Canada, along with free use of facilities to the U.S. Bush pilots flying to remote gold mines blazed a trail that will become tomorrow's great skyway. war's dramatic action reaches the far north as Coast Guardsmen blast their way through ice floes off Greenland in an attempt to break up establishment of Nazi bases. The hunt went on for 2 months, just a few hundred miles from the North Pole. Among the Navy task force objectives were armed German trawlers and a heavily mined radio and weather station in service on the island. The relentless search continued day and night. 60 Nazi prisoners were taken. Hidden in icy caves, much scientific equipment was captured, along with the crew of the Nazi weather station. From this point, valuable information had been radioed to enemy planes and bases. 2 Coast Guard cutters tracked down a brand new 180-foot Nazi trawler and cornered her in the ice. One trawler was scuttled by its crew, who were taken aboard the cutter Northland. During the Arctic operation, a 3rd armed trawler and another enemy installation were discovered. Both had been abandoned a short time before, and both were destroyed by our task force. Fighting the heavy drifts, the Northland finally smashed her rudder, and only heroic effort saved her from enemy attack. These are Coast Guard and Newsreel pictures. A prize crew brought the captured trawler Echsensteiner to Boston. Boarded before the German crew had time to set off demolition charges, the ship is complete in every detail. Rocket launchers and 37mm guns were part of her armor. Our vital mid-Atlantic base is safe, thanks to the unceasing vigilance of the Greenland Patrol.
From Strasbourg, Nazi positions across the Rhine are shelled. Despite savage Nazi resistance, Strasbourg was taken and Kiel came within range of American guns. Pillboxes are smashed. A factory is blasted. Our gunners are really on target. The Rhine is no barrier to Yankee artillery. These pictures, filmed by the underground and smuggled to their government in exile in London, are the first scenes to be shown of the Warsaw Uprising. Germans bombed and shelled sections held by the Poles and finally were able to move tanks and heavy equipment into the recaptured city. The 2-month-long revolt was a bloody and heroic battle, and starving Poles stripped dead horses for food. Forced to capitulate when no help came, the Poles signed an armistice with the Nazis. Once more, the Germans took over all parts of Warsaw, and the infantry reappears. But the battle's not over. The Patriots go underground once more to go to work with secret printing presses, turning out more than 100 publications for the people. And such lists as this report of the German atrocities at Lublin. The Germans systematically reduced the Warsaw ghetto to rubble, exterminating uncounted thousands. The underground still cover public places with their symbols of resistance, and every day sees new examples of their unrelenting courage in acts of sabotage. So efficient is their work that during the year, only 2/3 of Nazi troops and supplies reach their destinations. They dare to string up caricatures of Hitler. Poland will never die.
The French embassy in Washington takes on renewed activity as the capital prepares to welcome Monsieur Henri Bonnet, first accredited ambassador from the provisional French government. Madame Bonnet accompanies the new envoy to his post. Monsieur Bonnet, formerly Minister of Information in the de Gaulle government, will have an important part in post-war world diplomacy. Britain's Home Guard, whose dogged courage stood between England and disaster in the early war days, parades in stand-down ceremonies, witnessed by the King and royal family in Hyde Park. These are the men who, unpaid and almost unarmed, responded to their commander and patrolled roads, watched for Nazi parachutists, and undertook the hundreds of home defense jobs when England's back was to the wall. Thousands of Londoners paused to pay tribute to these heroes. England will never forget her citizen soldiers. Patriotism and war bonds packed the Coliseum in Houston, Texas for a championship match between champ Mildred Burke in white and the challenger Mae Weston. 11,000 bought 20 millions in bonds to see these two dignified young ladies have a quiet romp. Now, hold your hats, here we go. Mildred gives her a nice love slap, but Mae comes right back with a tummy massage. The champ lays down for a little rest while Mae obligingly gives her dear friend a rub down and then a facial. The girls are really old friends, you can see. Now, may I return the compliment, says the champ, and return it with interest. Oh, Mildred, really, must you leave? Well, do come back. Back so soon? It's nice to have you with me again, the champ says, but Mae, there's not enough room here for both of us. Now, Mae, here's a new twist for you, and for the last time.
Once more, 'tis my privilege to give you my greetings for the new year. All of us hope that the war against Germany will be over within the next few months, and that our victorious sailors, soldiers and airmen will soon be with us again. We must, however, remember that our implacable enemies have their backs to the wall and that they will fight with all their strength to delay the inevitable end. But our men are in good heart, and we know that they will fight with the same undaunted bravery that has earned for Canada and her armed services the admiration of the whole civilized world. And so I bid you be of good cheer, and I enjoin upon each one of you to make a New Year's resolution to support and encourage the armed forces of Canada and our allies by every possible means and with redoubled enthusiasm and energy.
carros blindados da SS Armada. O terreno está coberto de carros blindados do anglo-americano, destruídos e postos fora de controle. Lances americanos. Destas operações produziu igualmente bons resultados do aliado. O resto vai penetrar o quinto tanque inimigo ainda antes de ter alcançado a população. O terceiro e também quarto carro terão o mesmo tipo, Sherman. Depois ele é limitado.
Stemming von Rundstedt's drive into Belgium, Yank troops move up against heavy German counterattacks. All along the way, wrecked American equipment attests to the fury of the Nazi attempt to stall the Allied offensives toward Cologne and the Saar. Allied military government men shepherd civilians from areas under fire to comparative safety at the rear. Meanwhile, the front lines need vast quantities of ammunition and other supplies to stop von Rundstedt's drive through the dense forests and rocky hills of the Ardennes. To prevent infiltration by the Nazis, mines are placed in the wooded country along the roads. Roadblocks are set up. One light tank is camouflaged as a haystack. Troops scatter through the fields searching for Nazi paratroopers, drop behind our lines to disrupt communications. An abandoned parachute equipment container and a white snow cape are picked up. The Nazis tried every trick, even dressing their troops in captured American uniforms and sending them in jeeps to penetrate our lines. It was necessary for MPs to halt our own troops and check their credentials. These and following scenes of the Allied fight to halt the German breakthrough on the Western Front were released by Signal Corps, Air Force, and official British newsreel sources. The first few days found the weather perfect for von Rundstedt's thrust. Allied planes were grounded, and the infantry had to fight it out alone. But as soon as the weather broke, the eagerly awaited air support arrived. The huge bombers roared over Nazi positions and dropped thousands of tons of bombs. Bombardiers attack an important road junction choked with enemy supply trains. The RAF alone dropped an average of 10,000 tons every 24 hours on German positions. Patton's armor races madly to the relief of Bastogne, where parts of the 9th and 10th Armored Divisions and the 101st Airborne, tough paratroopers and glider men, were surrounded by the enemy. Thousands of these heroic men held grimly to their positions in the face of murderous fire until their comrades opened a corridor from the south. Dug into hillsides, they eagerly welcomed supplies delivered by fleets of air transport planes. "1,500 tons of supplies were parachuted to the besieged defenders. New supplies of ammunition are put to work immediately. And now the Nazis begin to feel the renewed might of Bastogne's defenders. Enemy equipment is shattered and many prisoners are taken. This is Bastogne, the town that General McAuliffe refused to surrender. Smashed American equipment testifies to the courage of its defenders. It's only fair that we should send them more. Jesse Jones, retiring Secretary of Commerce, testifies before the Senate Commerce Committee on a resolution by Senator Walter F. George to divorce the RFC lending agency from the Department of Commerce. The nomination of Henry A. Wallace as Commerce Secretary brings this statement from Mr. Jones.
The man who holds the vast responsibilities contained in the RFC should be one of proven and sound business experience. He should be able to attract men of sound judgment with business knowledge gained from experience in business. The country has a right to expect a man in this important place whose philosophy is in line with the principles which have made our country great.
Then Mr. Wallace has a chance to testify for himself. After explaining his views on the multi-billion-dollar Reconstruction Finance Corporation and his hopes and plans for post-war days, he defends his ability to hold both the jobs and outlines his policies, backed by Senator Claude Pepper. The former vice president then has this to say about the RFC when he takes office.
If the Congress doesn't feel that the powers of the RFC should be exercised in such a way as to carry out the objectives I have set forth here today, then I respectfully urge the Congress to take the RFC out from under the control of the Department of Commerce. For I tell you here and now that if the RFC is left in the Commerce Department, I will use its powers in the interests of all the American people.
Surgeon General Kirk, shown here with Colonel Hobby, head of the WACs, has sent out an urgent appeal for 8,000 more WACs as our casualty list mount to assist nurses in the 60 general hospitals in this country. They will assist the professionally trained nurse so that her greater skill can be spared for tasks only a nurse can do. The nurses are caring for as many as 40 sick and wounded soldiers instead of the normal quota of 10. To give the men the care they need and help speed them back to health, the aid of more WACs are needed immediately, for these men need a woman's touch. The WACs will be trained as medical and surgical technicians, such as laboratory experts, surgeons' aides, X-ray operators, and druggists among the many jobs. This appeal is urgent. Women soldiers to care for other soldiers whose tasks have already been so much greater. What woman wouldn't take deep pride in nursing a man back to health and speeding him on his way? Apply to any United States Army recruiting office and answer this appeal. Your mission will be one of mercy.
The new commander of the American Armed Forces in China, Major General Wiedemeyer, starts on a 3-day inspection tour as pictured by the Signal Corps. With the opening of the Lido-Burma Road, General Wiedemeyer's troops will get plenty of action. Major General Patrick J. Hurley presents to Chiang Kai-shek his credentials as Ambassador Plenipotentiary to the National Government of the Republic of China. General Hurley will do much to increase the already strong bond between the two allied nations. Anthony Eden takes a look at wartime Athens as top-ranking diplomats and army officers of the Allied powers gather to meet with Winston Churchill in an effort to solve the extremely difficult situation existing between Greek forces engaged in a bitter struggle for national rule. With Archbishop Damaskinos, he starts negotiations which resulted in the settlement of differences and brought final peace to Greece.
A spark from a welder's torch touches off a raging fire at the Navy Yard in Norfolk, Virginia. Navy men, Coast Guardsmen, and civilians aid in fighting the blaze, which quickly spread along the pier and saved adjacent piers and 3 Navy vessels, which were only slightly damaged. More than 90 persons required first aid, and 8 were sent to the hospital. 7 powerful fireboats and scores of smaller craft fight the blaze after the land end of the pier was dynamited to prevent the fire from spreading. Near disaster is prevented by quick action.
Modern production methods invade the home of Mr. and Mrs. Raymond McLeod, Weymouth, Massachusetts. Necessity being the mother of invention, Papa McLeod dreams up a universal feeder for his hungry triplets. There's pie in the sky and no ration points needed. And Doreen, David, and Donna Lee McLeod appreciate Pop's ingenuity. Well, one day they'll be big enough for beefsteak and mink coats, and then Papa will really have to get busy. Midwest war plants turn out a U.S. version of the deadly robot bomb engine, fantastic weapon of World War II. Among those rushing buzz bombs into production are Henry Ford II and Ray Rausch in Dearborn, Michigan. At the Willys plant, Toledo, Ohio, a robot bomb nears completion. Like a super dream of modern warfare, fostered in the imagination of Jules Verne, the robot bomb has visited untold terror upon European civilians. Engineers of the Army Air Forces Air Technical Command inspect the finished product. In a final test on a launching ramp, the buzz bomb takes to the air. Once in flight, the auxiliary launching apparatus is dropped, and the 27-foot bomb speeds toward its target. A devastating checkmate to Hitler's war of secret weapons. Arriving at Lingayen Bay, just over 100 miles from Manila, MacArthur's forces make good his promise to return. Under a naval bombardment, the Coast Guard delivers thousands of fighting Yanks to the shores of Luzon Island, main Jap base in the Philippines. 4 beachheads are quickly secured by the amphibious forces, the Japs having been driven back into the interior by the preliminary shelling. While little opposition is encountered, one Yank stops an enemy shell fragment, and some of the natives caught between 2 fires are cared for immediately. Coast Guard and Signal Corps cameramen picture the stars and stripes back on Luzon, this time to stay until the last Jap surrenders. That the Yanks are welcome is only too evident. Amphibious tractors roll on to Dagupan. Meanwhile, other forces have seized the airstrip at Lingayen, and another spearhead passes through Binmayan on the road to San Carlos. The attack fans out along the bay and heads south. Air reconnaissance keeps the command well informed concerning the road to Manila. An important factor in the drive on Luzon was the capture and refinishing of the airfield on nearby Mindoro. A few hours after our troops landed, engineers were at work on the strip, and not many days later, the field was ready for our bombers. Jap planes continued to strike, but anti-aircraft knocked them down. This was an enemy plane. But we have our losses too. A crippled P-38 comes in for a belly landing. And believe it, the pilot walked away from it. Destroying tons of vital equipment necessary to the Japs' campaign in Burma, RAF bombardiers pound enemy supply bases without let-up. These crews, New Zealanders, Australians, and Canadians, are off for a target lying along the railway between Mandalay and Rangoon. Above the Japs' chief supply base at Kinmana, the planes go in at 2-minute intervals. This is really pinpoint bombing. Another dividend for the Allies.
Facing the brief but furious German counteroffensive in Belgium, American engineers string barbed wire barricades in bitter winter weather. Snow has no beauty on a war front for the men who must do the fighting. Troops at the front must live the best they can, and a chance for a warm meal is a welcome interlude. The man who has a chance to throw up a tent or dig a foxhole is a lucky soldier. These are the men who helped turn the tide and push von Rundstedt's forces back. From under a blanket of snow, artillerymen dig out their ammunition, for this war waits on no weather. Before long, the big guns are ready to go into action and pound the Hun. Then the platoon moves forward to clean out enemy snipers. Rifles, machine guns, and bazookas do the job. Many stormtroopers are counted among the prisoners taken, but looking far from Hitler's conception of supermen. Some of the bitterest fighting took place in the area around Langlia in Belgium. Losses were heavy on both sides, but nothing could stop the slow but steady Allied advance. Evidence of the struggle is shown in these pictures of wrecked equipment made by the Signal Corps. Troops move into the still burning town of Wingen, also in Belgium. Retaking this key point meant a safer and surer advance. Here, too, there's further testimony to the bloody battles that have raged here. American helmets tell their own story, while the number of German prisoners testify to the fact that victory was ours. German losses in their attempt to break through will never be known, but the countryside is dotted with cemeteries. From the east and from the west, the Allies close in for the kill. The annual March of Dimes, which was climaxed with celebrations on the President's birthday, brings a flood of mercy money to the White House to help fight infantile paralysis. A visitor here, too, is 10-year-old Bobby Riggio of Brooklyn, on hand to present a check to Mrs. Roosevelt for $50,000. The check represents the money donated by radio listeners after he made an appeal over the air. His reward is a $1,000 war bond and a football he'll be able to use next year when he's fully recovered from infantile.
Sub-zero weather decorates the fishing boats that ply out of Boston with tons of ice as they return to port. The fishermen, most of whom have followed their trade since youth, claim the weather is nothing unusual, but the ice that must be chipped off before the catch can be unloaded from the trawler Plymouth calls for muscle and work. The Plymouth made port with a catch of 40,000 pounds, despite damage done by ice. The haul will find a ready market in these days of meat shortages. It takes more than weather to halt the fishermen.